So, welcome everybody to the latest Shocklab Seminar. Um, we are extremely pleased to have Chris Emezue here. I met Chris while I was in Canada, in Mila, and was extremely impressed with his energy and sort of just the work that he's been doing. And even though he's only sort of been on the scene for a very few years, he's produced some really influential work already. And yeah, coming from a sort of computer science and maths background, the impact he's been able to have already is really impressive. And when I heard about the Lanfrica project in particular, I thought this was something that would be really relevant for everybody here to hear about. And so, yeah, Chris, thank you so much for being here, and it's over to you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. That was such a I feel honored for the profile you gave. It was wonderful meeting you too and learning about the work of AI safety in your lab. Okay, this will be a kind of a chill conversation. I won't raise my voice because it's early morning here. But I'm very excited to talk about this thing that I have been part of. I do. I have been involved in different things around AI in Africa. So what I'm going to talk about is just one aspect of that. So we can talk about other things in the future. And I'm going to keep it as very non-technical and very brief because I'm also looking forward to having conversations around this. The work that I fell in love with Lanfrica is a work unlike any other when you think of AI in Africa. When you think of AI in general, there is from the technical side, the fancy stuff at the models, the data, the applications built on top of that, right? So if you think of AI, everyone thinks of ChatGPT and Claude because these are very good applications built on top of that people can use. If very few people think about the data these days, but when you think of the data, we think of okay, yeah, we have high quality, good data. Okay, that's good. Then the researchers think about the algorithms that are used. Over on the policy side and society side, the policy people think about the outputs of AI and how they impact people's lives. So there are all these. What you find out is that there are so many aspects of AI because AI is such an interdisciplinary field. It's a field that connects policy, sociology, law, science, engineering, different things. It's a field that also connects people, so communities, and it's a field that greatly affects people's lives. You use AI for face recognition in the police systems is affecting people's lives. You use AI in the voting systems is affecting people's lives. You use AI to generate content and news articles. So it's profoundly affecting people's lives. And this just makes AI such a very unique, unique concept that we are all trying to ensure that we get the best out of for people's and humanity's well-being. And because there's so many things happening, you have a situation like, so in my presentation, this first slide, what you're seeing here is like a desert. If you imagine you're like this person standing and looking at like the Sahara Desert, it's just a very vast expanse of, of things. And if you're trying to say, okay, how do I start going to somewhere from here? It can be very daunting. And I like to use this as a visual illustration of this quote here about the African AI ecosystem. The African AI ecosystem is so vast. There's so many things happening. So the policy side, research down to engineering, there's so many things happening. Data set, community. It's also uniquely vast in the sense that Africa, we say Africa a lot, and what Africa is like, more than 50 countries, 2,000 plus languages, uh, billions of people. So it's a lot, and a lot of these efforts are also fragmented. It's not very easy to know what's happening when it comes to AI in Ethiopia. If you are in Algeria, or if you're in South Africa, we can go through word of mouth, but word of mouth doesn't capture everything. Each country has their own unique data set policy and different things going on. So it's very fragmented and scattered in the sense that it's here, it's there. If you take research papers, for example, it's not in just one place. It's on Elsevier, it's on Nature, it's on Archive, it's on different places. It's on University of Pretoria servers, it's on University of Cape Town servers. Theses are here and there. And the most important problem, the thing that made me really very passionate about it, they're not always visible. And this is what starts creating the problem that this is where I enter into the reason why I'm doing what I'm doing at Lanfrica. You see, the fact that they're not always visible, it's an insidious problem. It's a problem that it doesn't look like a problem, but it slowly eats away at everything that we're doing, right? Because if you say, okay, the things we do are not always visible, it's like, yeah, okay, fine, but we can still manage what we have. We can still use what we have. But it's slowly eroding and affecting the things that we're currently doing. And I will show you how in some ways. One of the side effects, because the main problem is this idea of not always visible. And I always make this argument for open access and open science. And I say, well, open science and open access and open source, whatever open you want to put before that, it doesn't work when things are technically open and publicly available, but cannot be found. They're not visible. So if you create a data set or write a paper and you make it publicly available, where it's contributing to open science, but if the people who need that information in that paper cannot find it, then it's not there for them. And the impact of your work is not included. The contribution of your work is not included. And whatever they are publishing as their findings is grossly not comprehensive and misrepresenting some things. One of the side effects of this problem is the lack of visibility, which simply, in simple words, it just means you cannot find what you're looking for. And I will demonstrate this. We all have our default places where we go to find information. So if it's general information, most of us, we use a search engine like the one on my screen right now. But you also have repositories that you go to. Maybe you go to Zenodo, or you go to a particular repository depending on your field. The question I then pose to everyone is, what happens when what you're looking for in that place, it says not found? Does it really mean that that thing doesn't exist? Or does it mean that it exists, but it just cannot be found by where we're going to? So what happens when our default places fail us? So here's an example with Google search. And I'm a researcher. I do AI. And with AI, we work a lot with data sets. We need data. AI is actually just data. Now, what happens when I go to a place where I usually go to find data sets, and I look for a data set for a particular African language? So Ibibio is an African language. It's spoken in most parts of Nigeria. And I usually put it like this, like African language machine translation data set. If you put English here, voila, you find thousands of resources. If you put other languages, you'll find, I think if you put Swahili, to some extent, you'll find some things. So you can also see the idea of the information age that we live in right now. There is popular things, and there is, as you go down, less popular things. So it's very skewed. Information right now in this world, in our digital age, is skewed. The popular things get more of the attention, can be easily found, and the less popular things, their value keeps diminishing and diminishing. And now I'm told, oh, there are no data sets. And so we will look at this towards the end of the presentation. But when I get this result, I get the impression that, okay, there is no data set, which means it does not exist. And this is the problem that about the lack of discoverability. Wherever you go to find anything, whether it's Google search engine, or any place, when you cannot find what you're looking for, you believe it does not exist. And this is a problem because not being able to find it doesn't always mean that it does not exist. But because of the way things are structured right now, we believe it does not exist, and that work never gets included in whatever we're doing, leading to this problem. The second problem, the second symptom of this problem, is lack of evidence to inform what I call holistic understanding. Holistic understanding is different from just understanding, because holistic understanding is understanding of us, not just the thing you're trying to understand, but understanding how it's connected to different things. So, like in the beginning, I mentioned how AI is very connected and very interdisciplinary. So different things connect to one another. For example, if you take AI in Africa, and it's very easy to just focus on one layer, and maybe we're focusing on like maybe the large language models, or we're focusing on I don't know, the community impact. But how can we holistic understanding involves understanding how different things connect to one another, understanding how the African dictionaries and grammar books connect to what we call AI data sets. Now, typically when we think of AI data sets, we don't think of dictionaries and grammar books. We think of just some 8 GB data set that's somewhere on Hugging Face. But when it comes to the African landscape, AI data sets are more than just the processed data sets. They include the raw materials, the dictionaries, the grammar books. How do they connect? How does the keyboard, because the African ecosystem has, like, in terms of digital representation, Africa is underrepresented. And part of the issue is not having the correct keyboards and scripts that allow people to type, the right incentives. So how do those things now connect to AI? How does the work in Ethiopia connect to the work in Kenya? How does the work in South Africa connect to the works in Nigeria? And so having this holistic understanding requires something very important. And let me do a little game with you to show you what is required. Those in the room, I'm going to give you a bunch of quotes, and I want you to tell me, like, if you agree or you disagree, like how you're feeling about it. So, you see a quote somewhere, like maybe in some report or in an article, and said there is no data set, NLP data set for Gikuyu. So Gikuyu is an African language, and you can replace Gikuyu with your native language. There's any native language you speak. How do you feel when you hear that? Do you agree? Do you disagree? So you can raise your hand if you want, or you can just put it as a mental note. Another quote: African languages are low resourced. Okay. And I think many research papers say this. I mean, it's almost like a fact. It's taken as a fact now in some cases. Another one. Okay, this is now more of a question now that goes deeper. How many hours of speech data set do we have for Gikuyu? No. So we said there is no NLP data set for Gikuyu. So how many hours of speech data set do we have? Probably zero. If the person who says there is no probably believes it's zero, maybe it's 5, maybe it's 3. How many hours of speech data set do we have for Swahili or isiZulu or Chichewa? The important thing here, it's not about like I agree or I don't agree. The important thing here is, where do we get the statistics for these statements? Where do we get the statistics for their African languages are low resourced? Or the statistics for there is no data set for Gikuyu? So where are we getting the insights that inform our decision? And when you then ask this question, you then see a larger problem. The rest of the world have built and are building infrastructure that help them map the AI ecosystem for their countries and for the world. But whenever people say they're doing it for the world, it's the US, the popular things. No one really focuses so much on Africa. So they're building the infrastructure, providing the insights. So many of us, we have insights from Bloomberg and so many different foundations and different countries, the US, Europe, European Union. They're sponsoring World Bank, United Nations. They're sponsoring efforts to build statistics and build insights. But there isn't any organization, or maybe let me swap it a different way. Where do we get our statistics, our evidence, our insights about AI in Africa? Where do we get them from? Is it from people who, based in Africa, understand the African landscape, understand how fragmented it is, and understand how hidden most things are, and are making like specific effort to connect these things and actually bring out a more comprehensive insight? Or is it from organizations that are just trying to just do what's easy to find and what's out there and then aggregate it and say, yeah, that's what we have? You will see that most of these statistics that we get actually come from outside Africa, and they are based on studies from platforms and infrastructure that have very little representation of Africa. And that's why many of these statements that we have or that we see, the important thing here is we don't have the evidence or the statistics to better understand these things. So for example, we don't know, we've been, for me in my community with AI, we've been building data sets for 7 years now, but we cannot say how many hours of speech data set, or how much data set do we have for a particular language or a particular domain. We don't have a number, at least a rough number, that helps us, kind of like a North Star that helps us know, okay, this is where we are, this is where we have to go. And so a lot of the things that we do are based on anecdotes rather than evidence. And this is something that I feel is very, very important and needs to change. Unjuju Tiongo, who passed away this year, was a proud intellectual, and he always campaigned for African intellectuals taking up their roles and taking up the charge of building the necessary infrastructure, the necessary foundations to make African context excel in whatever we do. And he has this really nice quote that I find very profound, and it's about recognizing that all over the world, intellectuals and stakeholders have done and will keep doing what's best for their people, like the people they care about, or the geographies that are important. And the second part of it is that it's important for the African stakeholders to take up charge to build the necessary infrastructure and the necessary statistics and information that is needed to better understand AI in Africa. So here comes Lanfrica, and I started 2020 was when I was at the Masakani community, when it was a community, a bunch of very amazing people with so much passion, and we wanted to put Africa on the NLP map. So we did a lot of research. We built a lot of data sets, very like historic, monumental data sets. We did a lot of modeling. And as we were doing all these things, that's where we realized that all these things we're doing, it's important to figure out how to connect them so that they can be found by the people who need them. Because if we don't connect them, so for example, there's this idea that, oh, you can create a data set and release it on GitHub, and that's it, you're done. That's usually the typical workflow. You create a data set, you release it on GitHub or Zenodo or Hugging Face, and it's done. Because there is the understanding that when you make it publicly available, then it benefits everyone. But the information landscape is not equal. It's very skewed. Everyone is mostly those with the resources and the knowledge about these platforms that benefit from there. And the rest of the tail end do not get the same benefit. So for example, you put your data set on Hugging Face, and you have a student from the University of Nigeria who wants to, for their student project, they want to build a tiny model and they are looking for the data. Now the student doesn't know about Hugging Face. They go on Google search and they search for it, and Google says, "Oops, we cannot find anything." And they say, "Okay, it doesn't exist. Oops, so sad. Let me switch to English." And this has been happening. It happens over and over and over again. Or you put your data set on the Google Drive. Okay, I will show you a concrete example with this one. So Lanfrica Labs is an organization. It spun out of the Masakane community, and the sole aim is to tackle this problem of visibility. And our mission is to map the ecosystem of AI in Africa. So you can see it as the one organization that is specifically focused on Africa, because there are similar organizations that are mapping and bringing out statistics, but most of them are focused on the world, and the world is mostly the popular aspects of the world, or the places where you can easily find the information, the data you need. And this is not the case for the African continent. So Lanfrica Labs, we are focused on providing the statistics, the data, the information that's needed to inform holistic understanding of AI in Africa across different sectors, across climate, healthcare, across AI safety, NLP, computer vision, across languages, African languages. And we do this by mapping. So it takes a specific way to connect African efforts. And this is why what works in the global north and the Western centric approaches do not work on Africa. So let me give you an example. So for example, the consensus is that, oh, well, if you want to make it open, just put it in an open website and maybe do your SEO thing and make it work well. Okay, that's fine. You put it in an open website, maybe with OIPMH, and then, yeah, it will be open. But what about many universities in Africa, like in Nigeria, for example, that have their own servers where they have information that's being published? Not all of them would, it's online, is basically available, but not all of them are that popular on the level of MIT and Harvard, where if you go and search Elsevier for them, you can easily find these things you're looking for. So there are unique complexities. Another one is, what about the fact that many African resources, so for example, we noticed in universities in Nigeria, you have student theses written in the native languages, and they are in libraries. Now they're in physical libraries, so they are hard binded and they're just sitting there in libraries. So now they're physical, and then you enter the world of, digitized versus undigitized. And the consensus is, well, if you want anything to be found, make it digitized. But we are saying, is that really true? Like, do we have to conform to this idea that it must be digitized before its impact can be known about? And a lot of the work that we do at Lanfrica is actually on learning the standard consensus about how impact is created and what it means for something to be visible, and innovating on different ways of connecting African efforts, recognizing and acknowledging the unique challenges that there are within the African ecosystem. So for example, saying, well, a data set doesn't have to be released on a CC open license before it is findable. Some communities in Africa, because they understand the growing landscape of Gen AI and the way data sets can be abused, they could say, we want to make our data set private. But private doesn't mean that we don't want people to know about it. But if you follow the consensus, the general consensus is it has to be openly available before it's findable. But we say, no, it can be findable even though it's not openly available. So it's tiny things like this that make a huge difference in who gets to know about what you're doing. If you're doing something the Western way, then it gets to be known more. But if you're not following the conventional way, then it gets to be known less. And these are things that we are trying to change by our approach to mapping the ecosystem of AI in Africa. And I can talk a lot more about that, but I don't want to bore I go too much into that. In a nutshell, what we do is we map the AI in Africa ecosystem from the point of view of what we call resources. So the building blocks of AI, the data sets, the papers, the models, the use cases, so how AI is being used, and more. And how we help people with this mapping is, one, you can now find any African resource you're looking for, no matter where it is. And two, we provide the data that helps paint the full picture of how AI in Africa is actually shaping up and where it's headed. The unique thing about Lanfrica, or maybe one unique thing, is coverage. And I have this illustration of coverage, what coverage means. If you go to one place and you search for information, you get information that is hosted by that place. So here's an example. If you go to Google search, yeah, Google is actually organizing the whole internet, but you'll get information that Google has organized, basically. So from Google. If you go to a particular repository and you search for information, you find information hosted in that repository, only those hosted in that repository. But coverage means being able to connect across different repositories, across different knowledge sources, and bring it all together such that when you come to this place to search for something, you are now getting information from so many different sources, so many different knowledge sources, so many different repositories, even some you never even knew about. And this is one thing we strive for. We strive to get more and more coverage because we know that it's only through coverage that we can actually connect and make visible the hidden efforts of the ecosystem. So for example, if someone does something and puts it on a Google Drive or puts it on GitHub, we strive to ensure that when you come into Lanfrica to search for information, you can also know about that work that's being done. And some ways to use Lanfrica, and I will show the Lanfrica after this presentation, do a little bit of a demo because it's live and it can be used right now. So some ways that we've seen people use Lanfrica are doing literature review on something that involves AI in Africa, or you're just looking for African resources. So you're looking for data sets, or you could be looking for data sets for different things. Maybe you want to train LLMs, you want to train a model. We've also seen people from policy, for example, or government who are just looking for data-driven statistics. So this is the second thing that we said Lanfrica does, providing the statistics. And then if you're just interested in understanding the landscape and exploring. Okay, so let's check it out with that. In the beginning, I showed Google telling me that, yeah, this one. So Ibibio machine translation data set, and it says there is no single widely recognized data set for Ibibio. Let's check if that's true. And let's do a little demo with Lanfrica. So I go here, let me confirm that, yeah, okay. So this is Lanfrica, lanfrica.com. And this is the website. And when you scroll down, we have created this section that helps you to already interface with what we are doing, which is mapping the ecosystem. So this allows you to explore the landscape in these ways. You can also see, this is a search bar. These interesting carousels also show you the different aspects of different things around AI in Africa. One thing that I find very interesting that people find is that when they come and they say, oh, wait, dictionaries. Oh, I never thought about dictionaries when I think of AI. Or I never thought about keyboards. Or I never thought about linguistics when I think of AI. And it just makes them understand how much richer the landscape of AI is and how much richer AI in Africa is. one thing we noticed over like the 2 years we've been like mapping these efforts is that there's so much abundance, unlike the scarcity mindset, that anecdotal mindset that we have, which also has some bearing, but there's so much abundance when it comes to AI in Africa. It's just not in the way that we're expecting or in places that we're expecting them to be. And so when we don't find them where we expect them to be or how they should be, the idea is it does not exist. Okay. And then, okay, let's go into the Lanfrica platform. Let's go check the Ibibio thing. So Ibibio machine translation data set. So this is the discovery page where you can interact with all the records that we are mapping across different sources. And you can use the search bar, or you could use the filter. So let me use a filter and really go Ibibio, okay. Machine translation, okay. And let's see data sets. If okay, data sets, and here we go. So in reality, it turns out that it's not zero. It's not, a lot, but it's not zero. And an interesting story with this particular one is when you click here, you would be surprised where we found this data set. So this data set is actually hosted on Google Sheet. So it turns out the researchers were linguists and they were doing a little bit of linguistic plus computation work on the Ibibio language. And they created, little bits of phrases, about 1,820 lines of them. And they released their paper, and then they released the data on Google Sheet many years ago. Now, if you search Google, no matter how you search, you would never find this thing. And you would say, well, it does not exist. So, I'll go ahead and do something else. So but now, interestingly, with the work that we've done in mapping, if you now search Google, because Google indexes websites too. If you now search Google for Ibibio machine translation, it can now recognize that, okay, there's actually this work that actually connects to an Ibibio data set. So what we are seeing is that the work that we are doing is we map things to create more visibility for them and improve people's understanding of AI in Africa. And we're seeing a lot of impact, a lot of upstream impact, because the search engines and the crawlers and the different knowledge management systems are now also feeding off the work of Lanfrica to improve their own understanding of AI in Africa and improve the visibility that they are giving to people. And I will stop here. There's a lot more things on the Lanfrica, but I will share a blog about that introduces the work that we've been doing for the last year, and it tells you about the different amazing things that we have improved in Lanfrica in terms of finding stuff. The last thing I want to say is we work on mapping AI in Africa. It's a very broad, vague, ambitious project, and it's gonna take time. It's a long-term thing, and more importantly, it's gonna take networking. On the African ecosystem, you cannot do anything without networking and building networks with different stakeholders. So this is why a huge part of the work that we do at Lanfrica is networking with a lot of stakeholders across different sectors. And we continue to build communities and networks using the Mosakane Ubuntu participatory framework to expand the work that's being done in AI in Africa, empower the work that's being done, and create visibility for the rest of the world. And I will stop here. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Chris. Yeah, I think it's a really, really fascinating exploration and project. I think there will probably be lots of questions. I think Aneta had a question there. Do you want to ask your question, Aneta?
Right. Hi. Hello, good afternoon. Thank you so much. It was absolutely fascinating. I just want to find out, how do you deal with proprietary data sets? So data sets that are not necessarily available to the public. So I think you mentioned an example of a data set linked to an academic paper. In my area of research, often these data sets are not publicly available, but you can contact the author to get the data. So I'm just wondering how you deal with sort of, issues of property. And I suppose the other thing is, in South Africa, we have the POPIA Act, which is sort of a
Mm.
privacy tool. So I just want to find out if you have found ways of dealing with that. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for that question. I will try not to go too technical into how we do our mapping and try to answer your question. So
Please feel
one,
free also to go technical.
oh,
You can
really?
go
Okay,
technical
cool.
here.
Okay. One important thing that I'm particularly, so when we had the idea of Lanfrica in 2020, it took us about 2 years because we had to figure out, how do you connect the African ecosystem in a way that caters to these nuances and myriad ways of things. We don't want to impose and say it must be open before it becomes recognized. That's what a lot of efforts are doing. But we want to go, instead of going top down, want to go to, bottom up by first understanding the layered complexities around sharing and using resources in Africa, and then seeing what to do about that. And that led us to a very interesting thing. We realized that what we're trying to do at Lanfrica is to make things findable. Not so when you think about findable, it's very different from publicly available. So publicly available, open source, open, all those things are like, we put them in one basket and we say, okay, we're not gonna go into that. We're gonna just work on findability. And the idea is very simple. Findable means like, it's independent of, the next layer the next layer is accessibility. So there's findability, then there's accessibility. Accessibility is where you now deal with these, okay, it's private, it's not private, it's commercial, not commercial. But findability is actually a layer above that most people don't recognize. So for example, if you have a proprietary data and you say, okay, it's proprietary, which means you have to contact me. But I would like to make it findable so that someone who needs the data set can know that it exists. Now, when they want to access the data set, then they now have to deal with the proprietariness. So by working on findability, one important thing that we do is, we don't take the data, we don't host the data. All we do is we take metadata about your resource. So important things like the title and a short description. Then the second thing that we do is organization. So bringing out information like, okay, what language, what sector, what country. This is the organization part of Lanfrica. And then the third thing is a URL. So it's like, where should we point people to when they want to go more into this resource? And that's why you have this URL that then takes them to the source. This helps a lot with copyright because we're not claiming any copyright. We're not also claiming that we are in charge of the resource. We are pointing you to the original copyright holders of the resource, and then you now deal with that. What we have seen is that this allows us, because we've talked with different customers, also, like I mentioned, the communities that want their data set private, that's one segment. There's also proprietary clients that want their data private, or for different reasons don't want it to be the conventional way. And what we've seen is that this metadata findability driven approach works for them. Like, they like it because, like, okay, well, I don't have to worry about, oh, I have to make my data open or whatever. I just give you this metadata and you help make it findable. And then when they now come to actually use it, then if they have to meet someone, they meet someone. If they have to go to the University of Cape Town server, so like, we always point people to where they go to. Yeah, so being metadata driven and looking at the problem from looking at the problem by really dissecting it and bringing out the first layer, which is findability, helps us address a lot of these nuances.
Perfect.
And another thing I'm very excited about, we will start that in the roadmap, but it allows us to do something very, very different too. It allows us to approach undigitized resources. So this is something I'm very excited about, because there's this convention that, well, if it's not digitized, oops, no one can do anything with it. But we want to change that. We want to show that even if something is undigitized, it can still be findable. So you could have a thesis document that's in a library and it's not digitized anywhere, but it can be findable on Lanfrica. And then when they go to then access it, they then contact the person to get the copy. And so, yeah, this is the approach that we're taking at Lanfrica. It's all about rethinking how we connect things by really coming. And this is why Lanfrica is focused on the African ecosystem, because if it was focused on the world in general, then it wouldn't work for many of the things we're trying to do.
Cool. Thank you. Nicholas, I think had a question there.
Yes, thank you. Can you hear me well?
Yep.
Okay, great. Thanks, Chris. I love what you're doing. So, I mean, I had one question about the digitization, like if something's not digitized, but you just answered that, so that falls away. And the other question was concerning, so I've seen your team is like rather small, I think. And I mean, I see like 4 people, including you 5. And all of these are like tech people. So I was wondering, I mean, you said you didn't want to talk so much about the technical detail, but how do you actually do this? Like, how do you, like, since when do you have this project running, and how do you get how do you find these undigitized things and all the stuff? Like, are you actually using deep learning for this, or some kind of AI approach for that, or?
Yeah. I can go technical, and please feel free to ask me very technical questions. How we do this, I think broadly speaking, we found 2 approaches. It's like a 2-pronged approach. One is automating some of the processes, and the other is network driven. So the automated process is building an automated way of metadata harvesting. So it's about it's an automated way of going to repositories. So you what repository do I give as an example? Archive, Zenodo. So going to popular repositories and harvesting the metadata of the records. So not the records themselves, but the metadata. So harvesting, organizing. Organizing means, okay, this metadata, what is it about? Which African languages are covered? Is it a data set or a paper? So that's organizing. And doing that in an automated fashion. That is what we do. That involves huge technical components from metadata harvesting. It's metadata harvesting is, you can liken it, though this might be wrong, you can liken it to crawling, but it is the open ethical alternative to crawling. Because crawling, you just come to a website and just scrape everything, whatever, regardless of whatever it's there. But metadata harvesting, the repository would say, okay, I am open to sharing my metadata openly, and this is how you can access it. So that's metadata harvesting. And then the organization, that is what involves some bit of machine learning, because if you want to automate it, you might think about, okay, how can we know if this is a paper or a data set very quickly when we're dealing with millions of resources. So this is our automatic technical approach. The other side is the networking side, because the automated and technical thing can only go so far. There is still maybe something you missed somewhere, or you didn't even know that there is such a repository, or you didn't know there was something like this that existed here. So the second way is building networks. And I say that literally, we really build and connect with as many different people and stakeholders and communities and organizations as we can. By building these networks, we get to know about the work that they're doing, and we get to include them in our metadata mapping.
Cool, thank you.
All right, great. Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you. You know, this is so interesting just in terms of thinking, what can we do at UCT? And I know that there are people in the room beyond UCT here. So yeah, maybe that would be a question. You know, if somebody here would like to get actively involved with this, maybe they're at a university, maybe they're at, you know, working in a company. What can people do like right now? So I saw that there's a contribute button, but what's the best way to actually actively contribute to this at the moment?
One moment, let me think about how to shape my thoughts. I have something in my mind that I'm trying to figure out how to say. What is in my mind loosely is it's kind of like something like it might sound cringe, like, you know, one of the best ways to contribute is to keep doing what you're doing, basically. So it's not really about it's not really about like you contributing to the Lanfrica. It's really about Lanfrica contributing to what you're doing and kind of augmenting with what you're doing and collaborating with that. That's how I think about it, because I think and I said, in the beginning, I said that I'm doing different things, and I'm just talking about Lanfrica in this meeting. So Lanfrica sits at the intersection of different things. It sits at the intersection of data and community. It sits at the intersection of AI safety. It sits at the intersection of modeling. It sits at the intersection of grants, which you might be like, wait, what grants? It sits at the intersection of OCR and digitize. So it's really, you know, we sit at the intersection of different things, even at the intersection of policy and understanding policy around Africa and doing that. So there are different things that we sit on, like we sit at the intersection of. And the way I see collaboration is when we reach out to, let's say UCT and the team that's here, let's say you're working on AI safety. The idea is, okay, how can we collaborate with the work that you are doing on AI safety? And usually one thing that we do with Lanfrica, like one value we bring with Lanfrica is sometimes it's maybe helping with this particular project to sort of take it more on a wider scale, if that makes sense, in the sense of creating visibility on that and sort of pushing down that down through streams to other communities and the different works that people are doing. Another important thing that we help with Lanfrica is connecting that with all other things going on in Africa. So like if you say, okay, we're doing something on AI safety, we say, okay, we can connect that with, you know, AI safety doesn't have to just be about maybe solving the alignment problem or solving the policy side. You could also connect with communities that are building data sets and what are the safety requirements there. It could connect with the ecosystem of compute infrastructure in Africa, where it's like, okay, we don't have compute. How does that connect with that? So these are some of the ways that we bring value to projects that we collaborate on. And so to answer the question of how can you collaborate, if you want to collaborate to the direct mapping, so, you know, the mapping is just one thing that we do. We also sit at the intersection of different things. If you want to contribute to the direct mapping, yes, you can. You sign up and you can contribute. So contribute. We're still making it possible. If you click here, it says "Coming in vitro," because we are making it possible that when you sign up, then you can actually add. You can actually add the work that you're doing. But for now, it's really just, it's more crude. So you click the contribute, and then you would, no, sorry, you don't even, this is still crude because it's still Shingo. You would have to join our Discord, and then you would contribute. But I think there is more than you can do beyond contributing. And I think the partnerships are very crucial. So we do a lot of work on research, where we look at the intersection of AI and different things in Africa. And the most important thing for the research and partnerships that we do is how do we incorporate Global South voices? So if we're talking of AI safety, how do we incorporate Global South perspectives on AI safety? How do we incorporate Global South perspectives on the compute problem? How do we incorporate Global South perspectives on how we create data sets in AI? So, and incorporating Global South perspectives means being able to figure out the different Global South voices, the different Global South concerns. And we do that very well because by mapping we map not just resources, we also map people and communities. So we're able to aggregate a lot of the Global South perspectives across different sectors. I babbled
great
about different things. I don't know if,
No.
if it paints some picture on
Absolutely.
collaboration.
So then one other quick question. So a lot of what you've spoken about here is on the language side of things. But I also work with sort of medical data. And there's a lot of work that goes on talking about sort of the diversity of medical data across Africa. Has there been much work on mapping that sort of data? And of course, there it would go to Annetta's question about sort of the privacy. But if you're linking and just saying this thing exists, how much have you been able to do in that sense?
So a lot is on language because we started with language. We want to our goal is AI in Africa, but we know that everything has to start from one place. So we saw language as a very good place to start. So the scaling plan is from language, we scale to other sectors. We've identified health, agriculture, finance, and climate as important, crucial sectors to scale to. So from 2026, our plan is to scale into that. I think we also have some finance things here. So we have started going into different domains beyond language to finance and health. So, but we've just started. So that's probably why there are actually a lot of another thing. There are actually a lot of health records here. They've just not been organized. So I think if you do something like say, so you don't see like a filter for healthcare, but you can use the search to search for things with natural language and see when you do a search with anything health, you do see a lot of health work here.
Okay, great.
So when I say we're moving with healthcare, is really about organizing. So providing the important details to help people better understand what's there.
Great. Are there any other questions from anybody else? So certainly from my perspective, I think continuing this discussion with you and seeing what we can do, particularly on the AI safety side, and then also in the future on the medical side. So Alyssa here is working on sort of neuroimaging and that sort of thing, and it's definitely a problem that there are so many interesting data sets, but even within one university, people don't know about what's going on in other places. It's not findable even within a single institution. And I think a platform like this is really, really valuable just in terms of being able to see what else is out there. Just as an anecdote, I organized a symposium on MRI data, and it turns out there are 4 different groups at UCT working on MRI data, and the data is so siloed that nobody knows the data exists from one team to another. And this is not a casting aspersions on the MRI people here. I think it's just the way universities work, and I think that something like this, where you're focusing on findability beyond hosting, it's a really, really impressive perspective. I think it's great.
Yeah, thank you. One quick thing I want to add is we don't, all of the work we do, it's not just around Lanfrica on the platform. Because one thing I also see that we've seen as a huge point of value is working with other stakeholders to do what Lanfrica is doing for them. So we've had stakeholders who say, okay, we're in the field of there was one example, like, okay, we're in the field of climate, and we have a community, and we've seen this problem of findability. So can you bring your expertise and let's build something to create findability for the climate, and then it's going to be hosted by this organization. So we see that we're able to also bring our expertise to different people, universities, companies, communities, organizations, to help them tackle the findability problem, which really means help them connect the different things going on to create change and create huge impact. So that's also another avenue for collaboration. So it doesn't have to be you contributing to the platform. It's also about, if you identify, oh, we have the findability challenge, or we have problem connecting, or we would love to connect something. Yeah, Lanfrica can be your place to help. We could work on something together to help create more connection in whatever you want to do.
Amazing. I think that's really exciting. Any final questions from anybody?
Hi, Jonathan. I have a question.
Yeah, please.
Hi, Chris. Okay, so thank you for the presentation, first of all. I just have a question. So I'm working on AI safety, particularly in technology-facilitated gender-based violence. And myself, I'm not an African language speaker. So I just want to find out from you. So when you were doing your data set, were they directly translated by native speakers through volunteering? Or what was your avenue to get those African language data? Say, for example, there are certain specific words, then how did you make sure that the translation was correct?
When you say our data set, you mean the data set on the Lanfrica platform?
That's correct.
Okay, so the data set on the Lanfrica platform is not our data set. So it's not mine. It's also not Lanfrica's. It's the data set of people and communities who created the data sets, and we are just making them visible, making people able to find
understand.
them.
Okay, understand.
Yeah, let me give you a. Do we have some time?
Yeah, we can go a couple of minutes after.
I like this. I like this. Let me give you an example. So, let's take machine translation. There is this data set on machine translation by this community. So you click on it.
Chris, I don't know if we're supposed to be seeing your screen at the moment. We can see the Lanfrica screen, but nothing's changing on it.
Sorry. Okay. I need to re-share. Thanks for the note, because I was actually sharing stuff. Okay, I think this should be better. So maybe let me go back a little bit. So I was saying, so let's say you're looking for, let's take machine translation data set as an example. Okay, so the data sets that you see here are not our data sets. They're data sets from different people. And let's take any example. Let's take this one as an example. So when you click on it, it's a data set. It also has a paper along with it. Let's see this link. This link is like a paper data set. This one is also a paper link. Okay. So, okay, let's find another one that has, okay, maybe this one. Yeah, Horn of Africa. Beautiful. So this is another machine translation data set, okay, by Lesan. And when you click on the link to visit, it takes you to the Lesan AI benchmark. So to answer your question about how the data set was made, it depends on the communities that are making the data set. This data set, for example, was translated by the communities that speak the language, and I know because I know some of the people who were involved in this data set, some of the team, and then this data set is a data set for machine translation that supports different African languages. There are data sets that have been created by different avenues too as well. So data sets that were translated by professionals, data sets that were machine translated, data sets that were translated by a mix of both, data sets that were not translated, but they were just grabbed from the internet. So I think the CC data sets are of that category, where they are is the CC aligned, which is from Common Core, basically web text data that's just brought together. So the data sets, one, they're not ours, and two, they're created from different ways. And the way that you know about how it was created would typically be like you clicking on the thing and you reading the abstract, the description a little bit. It kind of gives you an idea. And if you want to learn more, then you visit the where the actual resource is hosted.
Cool. Does that answer the question, Lewis?
Yes.
Or you can ask us.
So sorry, can you maybe just open, say, for Hausa, can you maybe open a data set? I just want to
Oh,
run through a
yes.
few things with you. Yeah, thank you so much.
Perfect.
It might be worth doing this one offline
Okay. Yeah.
if that's okay.
Okay.
Yeah,
That's fine. That's fine.
if
But
there are multiple questions, yeah.
okay. But what was the thing you wanted to run through? Like, what was one of them, the most pressing?
Everberta, because I cited this paper in my publication. But we can, me and
Okay.
you we can do this offline if you,
Okay.
there are other questions. Yeah. There are other people also.
Okay.
Cool.
Thank you so much, though.
Thanks.
My pleasure.
Maybe a last question there. There's somebody with their hand up. Maybe if you want to introduce yourself as well. And yeah, the floor is yours.
Hello. Can you hear me?
Hi there. Yes.
I'm Francis Waidaka from CMU.
Great.
I was thinking of a situation where, because Africa has many languages, so when people speak, they kind of mix the language together. Was that part of the consideration? Because, for example, I give an example of Kenya, like they have Swahili and English. When they're speaking, they kind of mix between the two. I was thinking of a model that that can know when someone is speaking, this is an English word, this is a Swahili word.
I see. You're thinking of a model, so a model that can understand the code mixing. Oh, like,
Yes.
is that your question?
Yeah, or was it put in a consideration?
I see. I think short answer is yes. It was put into consideration for our mapping effort. And the long answer is how it was put into consideration, I think, is so sometimes the people who create these resources, so like the researchers who create the paper or the data set, they say, okay, yes, our data set contains Swahili and English. And we put that in, when we're mapping, we put that in the description. We also have a thing here where we try to detect during our organization effort, we try to figure out the languages that are supported by this resource. And so, for example, you would see Swahili in such a resource. Of course, it would not show English because we're focused on the African languages. So it would show the African languages, but the fact that you see Swahili here doesn't mean that there is no English. So also sometimes the title might have code mixing, like this is a code mixing thing, or the tags might have code mixing. And sometimes maybe if you just want to like say, just show me anything code mixing, you could also probably maybe try that on Lanfrica and see what could come out. Like, okay, there you go. Maybe you're looking at code mixing models and let's see what happens there. And okay, this is code switching and mining and stuff. So yeah, this maybe how Lanfrica could help you look for the thing you're looking for in terms of code mixing. And there seem to be actually some stuff in terms of code mixing here.
Does that help with your question?
Yeah, it does. Thank you very much.
Great.
Please, if you have more questions, please feel free to reach out. You can reach out to the different ways to reach out to us. We try to make it as simple as possible. So this is a number. It's also WhatsApp supported. So if you prefer WhatsApp, you can use this. We have a Discord community where you can talk with us and so if you're looking for something, our goal is to help you find what you're looking for. So even if you don't find it on Lanfrica, please reach out and say, hey, I'm looking for this. Can you help me? And then we will talk with the people that we need to talk to or find it, make sure we can find it for you if it exists. So please, if you're ever looking for something, it's not just about the platform. It's also about, we're building a community to help people who are building AI in Africa to find what they are looking for. And so that's what we're here for.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much, Chris, for your time and for your presentation here. It's been really, really fascinating. I think from the reactions from people here, I think it's really impactful. There's a lot of reactions here. But yeah, thank you so much. We will keep in touch. I think, Lewis, if you want to reach out to Chris, I think that would be very valuable as well. And yeah, as Chris said, he's available for people to reach out to. But again, I'd like to thank Chris so much for coming and speaking to us. And I will catch you all very soon. Thanks so much, folks. Bye-bye.
Thanks a lot, everyone. I put my email on the chat if you want to quickly reach out to me via email. please feel free. Thanks a lot, everyone.
Many thanks. Bye-bye.